4K, we have a bit more of an interesting slate coming up, right, Simon?
Do
we?
Well, Simon would know because he's not watched any of them. I have been lucky enough.
Oh.
So yes. So the lucky being the operative word. So I think yes. So 3 4K releases that I've had the pleasure to watch are the latest Scream, which was released today. I think it's today.
Today, Monday. Yeah.
Yes, today's Monday, isn't it? Oh, terrible. Again, yes, I've seen it twice now. It doesn't improve. It's a very competent slasher, but the film itself is just a very, very poor Scream movie. Easily the worst of the franchise. It spends too much time in love with Wes Craven and the first film to forget it actually has to do anything of its own merits. So it's not great. But the other 2 4K disc releases that I've been lucky enough to see are early releases, and one of which is quite interesting. But I'll do the uninteresting one first, shall we say? So I watched today the Arrow 4K Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer.
Okay.
Which, when you think about it, as a grotty 4x3,
Grizzly,
16mm, 80s trash, it's hardly candidate for a lovely lavish 4K release, but actually Arrow have done a bang up job. It's not the most extras laden disc, but what they've managed to do with that 16mm picture is really quite good. Easily best in their work they did with The Hills Have Eyes. So
there's bits of video in that as well, isn't there? Because that was the whole problem with that film when it was released in this country. The BBFC took huge exception to the 2 guys watching themselves commit the rape and murder. So how does that fare, the video section?
Well, put it this way: you wouldn't even notice if I'm honest. They've done a bang up job. It honestly doesn't. At points, I thought I'm not even watching 16mm. You know, the grain is so tight. There's quite a lot of detail in there. It probably helps that it's a really sort of flat shooting style, so lots of light, very little depth. But yeah, it looks great. As I say, slightly disappointing is the list of extras on it: 3 audio commentaries, a couple of scene-specific commentaries, and about 20 minutes of deleted scenes. Really, that's about it. There's no
that's unusual for Arrow.
Yeah, there's no nice meaty making of on there. There's no cultural context, no wheeling out the beardy academics to talk about its influence and all that kind of stuff. So if you're coming to it looking for rafts of those extras, you are not going to get it. But yeah, I mean, I was just telling you guys on the Skype earlier, it's not as grim as you remember it.
Are they?
It's interesting. I was telling my sister about it last night. So, I can't believe it's the most grimmest, grottiest film you've ever seen. I'm watching it today going, did I really watch this back then? So that was one. The other one is Second Sight's 4K release of The Vivitch. Now, what was interesting about this is I got to see the version that they deemed unacceptable and pulled from release.
Yeah, there was a last minute pull, wasn't there?
So because I'd reviewed it, I'd written the review, I'd submitted it, and everything was all ready to go, and then Second Sight pulled it. What was interesting about it was I did a comparison to the previous Universal Blu-ray, and the 4K version had even less color in it than the regular Blu-ray. It was bleached to within an inch of its life. It was so almost monochrome. I mean, to be fair, monochrome, you've at least got black and white. This just looked like it was sort of hazy, muddy, browny grey. Now, I have to admit, I thought it was a stylistic choice. I thought it quite suited the film, if I'm honest. And I'd written my review to say that. I said, well, this is an interesting choice. I kind of like it. Because, of course, it had all the other usual 4K stuff. You know, there's nice uptick in detail, all that kind of stuff. But then when I saw that they'd pulled it, I thought, ooh, yes. They forgot the color, didn't they? That's what someone's doing now, quickly. So it'll be really interesting to see the new release, to see if it does differ considerably from what they'd put out before. So yeah, that was interesting.
going against type, I haven't ordered the Witch box set. I've been expressly forbidden, I'll be honest, from ordering it. So yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what happens when it does come out.
It will, and I'd put in the review that of all the second sight releases that they've done so far, this was possibly the one that did not justify Second Sight's usual high price tag for its collector's edition.
Yeah, maybe so.
Because in essence, the only real extras were about an hour and 20 minutes of new interviews, which didn't tell you anything you couldn't find if you have a quick search on YouTube. And what was worse, they put on some legacy features, which featured an awful lot of the same kind of anecdotes and the same kind of stories. So it really didn't feel like one of Second Sight's big releases, not when you compare it to something like Lake Mungo or Censor or something like that. So
speaking of Lake Mungo, that was one of the box sets that I held off on. I didn't pull the trigger on that at the time, and sort of semi regretted it. But last month they released their standard edition of Lake Mungo. And mentioned earlier that there's a competition currently running on the site for it.
Yes.
And I did secure a copy of that, and I'm very glad that I did, because it's a super interesting movie.
Yes.
So I'm sort of hoping that they'll do the same with The Witch eventually.
They will. Well, but I mean, we talked about this before, didn't we? It is the new boutique model, isn't it? Yeah. Release the super expensive edition, get the cheddar in, and then release the bare bones later. But of course, now it's so ubiquitous, we all know it's coming. So we pick and choose, don't we? We pick which box of gloriously expensive and overwrought tap we want, and we then don't buy the ones that we don't, because we know a cheap one will be coming. So. Please, Second Sight, make a standard edition, please.